Hi, I'm Patty Greene, a licensed audiologist. I've been in the hearing healthcare industry for more than 30 years in various capacities. Currently, I serve as the Director of Provider Engagement at TruHearing. Today, we've invited a panel of hearing care experts to discuss the integral role they play in their patients' hearing healthcare journey. Our discussions today will be centered around the impact untreated hearing loss can have on a person's health and well being, some of the barriers which prevent people with hearing loss from seeking help, and to share some positive results people have experienced by wearing hearing aids. Before we begin, I'd like to thank each of our providers joining us today and to invite each of them to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about where they work, and how long they've been a hearing care provider.
My name is Ganesh Kripapuri. I'm a licensed hearing aid specialist in Indiana. I've also been a licensed hearing aid specialist in California for almost 23 years. I've been in the hearing aid industry for 30 years in different capacities, including in management of sales, marketing, and product management, international sales development for leading manufacturers. Um, but lately, the last couple of years, we now have 10 hearing aid offices scheduled to be opened in Indiana, the greater Indianapolis area. And we're called Key Hearing Aids. And that's where we're at right now is in Indiana.
Great, thank you.
And my name is Aaron Whiteley. I'm a licensed audiologist in Sun City, West Arizona. Myself and my wife Leslie own and operate our practice called Whiteley and Whiteley Audiology. I graduated in 2020 with my doctorate in audiology and my certificate of clinical competence. I went to the University of Arizona for graduate school and wrapped up my training at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale. So we've been out here for a couple of years now serving the Sun City West area.
Excellent, thank you.
Hi, my name's Scott Johnson. I am a licensed audiologist. I've been working in the healthcare industry since 1987. So in June, it'll be 36 years that I've been doing this. I started off as a hearing instrument specialist and then went on and got my doctorate in audiology. My current office is Oregon Hearing Solutions in Sherwood, Oregon, which is just a small suburb of Portland. So we serve the whole west side of the Portland metro area.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. As we can see, we have an excellent panel joining us with a wealth of knowledge and experience we'll tap into today. TruHearing is very proud of our provider network because TruHearing only partners with providers who meet high quality standards in their practices and through patient care. Each provider is required to go through a credentialing process prior to being accepted into our provider network and must be recredentialed every 3 years. Additionally, providers must adhere to the clinic and patient care standards TruHearing has in place to ensure the best patient experience and outcomes, which may be in addition to the standards providers already have in place in their own clinics. So let me ask each of you, how important do you feel these standards are to your patients and your practice? And what impact does that have on the patient experience?
I'd say it's incredibly important, going through the process of getting your hearing tested, pursuing hearing aids, if that's something that you need to do. It involves a lot of time and energy and resources, both from yourself and the provider. And so it's very important to know that the person that you're working with has been validated and verified to be a professional that upholds a high quality of care and maintains good professional standards. And so I think being able to have that confidence that when you work with a provider who's in network with TruHearing, that you are working with a provider who has met that standard, it's a huge boon.
Yeah, I find that we when we're going through our process, whether it be with a true hearing patient or any, that we're following the same, high quality of care. It all starts with a comprehensive exam, doing a good case history and finding out about that, but then just also doing a good comprehensive examination so we can get a thorough idea of what's going on. And by following that same plan, whether it be for a third party person through True Hearing or anybody else is coming in or a diagnostic test for the VA, I think that we need to follow that same protocol and that'll get the best results for our patients.
Scott and Aaron so eloquently said it, and adding on to that, um, key hearing aids, we have a standard of care that's right now 72 pages long. It's constantly evolving, and I have a feeling that it'll probably be well over 150 pages when we're done with it. But it's very important that every client has a thorough case history, a very, very good, thorough audiometric exam. And given how, as we all know, the effects of hearing loss and so many on society and psychological effects of the population we serve on their immediate families and friends, that sometimes we're not just treating the client, but we're treating the whole person and having a huge impact. And we find that making sure people are not a number, making sure we do really measurements, that we do good solid verification procedures, and that we hit certain goals and compliance issues, make sure they're wearing the hearing aid, they know how to use the hearing aid, they know how to clean it, how to maintain it, how to ask for help. And we tell clients all the time, our job begins when you become a client. It does not end. And having a company like TruHearing that already has high standards that mirrors what we want to do with our standard of care, it's a win-win for the network, for our company, and also for the customers we serve.
Great. And it's nice to hear about all of the standards that each of you have and how it leads to a positive experience for the patients and their families, as Ganesh had mentioned. Because we know that having the high quality standards for care and service can help those with untreated hearing loss get the help that they need and be successful. Because as providers, you know that untreated hearing loss can have a negative impact on one's physical and mental health and overall well-being, and that research has shown that untreated hearing loss contributes to social isolation and depression. It can impact relationships, both personal and business relationships, and lead to a higher risk of cognitive decline, falls, and other health conditions. So, untreated hearing loss can have significant negative impacts. And in your experiences, how has hearing loss impacted the quality of life for the patients you've seen?
Well, I think that many of my patients complain about isolation and depression, especially with their untreated hearing loss. They just feel like they're missing out, especially if they've, maybe moved from their home into a group setting or something that they're not able to communicate and they're not feeling like they're part of that group. But I also have a lot of them that just talk about the stress and the conflict that comes when they're trying to talk to family members or they're at work, and just the missed conversations and the stress that comes with having the family express that, hey, you're not hearing me, or having to repeat, and just all of that conflict that occurs from that.
Yeah, we in our practice will routinely see patients who come to us when they've hit a point where they feel like they're having to withdraw from things, aspects of their life that they really find enjoyable. They'll say, "Well, I don't go out to my church group anymore, or I don't go get coffee with my friends as much anymore because I'm not going to be able to follow along with the stories that they're telling, or I'm going to miss the punchline of the joke, and it's just not a very enjoyable experience if I'm not able to fully hear what's going on in those environments."
Yeah, that's so true. This conversation reminds me of a case we had a couple of years ago back in California, where we had a local physician that had referred and continues to refer a lot of clients, their patients, to our office. And we saw this adult female, in a high functioning adult female in the early 90s. Um, and the neurologist had suspected adult onset dementia for this client. The family was not sure. They were not unsure. They were not sure. So they saw the family physician and really had a big discussion. And this physician referred the lady to our office. And sure enough, probably should have had hearing aids, like a lot of people we see, many years before she came in. And after a few week process, uh, after she got used to the hearing aids, it was a night and day difference. Now, I never did find out whether what the actual clinical diagnosis was, whether she actually had adult onset But all I did know from the family and the physician, because I did follow up and talk to him, that the quality of life for this person was so much better that the family was no longer concerned about the other, given her age. All they wanted her to be comfortable, be happy, and be high functioning, which the hearing aids managed to do. So you kind of wonder how many people are walking around with maybe on a spectrum. You know,
Yeah.
we can control the controllables. So it makes me want to come up and show up to work every day, knowing that we're making a big impact.
Yeah.
This is great information because this leads into, first we're talking about the effects of untreated hearing loss. But Ganesh, as you started to allude to, there are positive results that people will experience and their families will experience when they get treated, when they get hearing aids. So, can you share, each of you share some insight as to what are some positive things that people with hearing loss can look forward to when getting hearing aids?
Well, the first thing, we had a delivery this morning, a first time TruHearing client. As a matter of fact, he bikes a lot, uh, and he was amazed at how many sounds he was not hearing before that are now audible to him. He didn't realize there were so many different kinds of birds in the great state of Indiana. So of course we've all heard things like that, but it's nice to hear every day when somebody actually feels that for the first time, and you go, wow, at least for me, it doesn't get old hearing that. They realize how much depth of conversation they've been missing, lack of intimacy between their family members, their spouse, their partners, children, grandchildren. Uh, Things like that. I'm sure Scott and Aaron will add to that. That's a long list, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are great examples, Ganesh. It's something that we see a lot where when you've had hearing loss for enough time that's been untreated, you almost hit a point where it's like, well, I don't know what I don't know. What exactly am I missing? And hearing aids often kind of remove that veil and show you, well, this is all the sound that actually is out here in the real world. And now that patients can hear it again, they're often able to plug back into those social settings that they might have withdrawn from a little bit. Or even if they haven't withdrawn, they can more fully engage in those situations that they really enjoy being a part of. And so that's the real, thing that puts a smile on my face when we work with a patient.
Yeah. Well, and Aaron, you kind of summed it up. I was thinking about this question, and really I think that the word that kind of sums it all up is joy. I mean, a lot of times
Mhm.
that the patients are just sitting there and they're just so thankful that all of a sudden they can communicate and hear their grandchildren and be able to have that conversation. Or I just had a patient that came in and all of a sudden she goes and has coffee, at her mealtime or whatever, and she was able to hear her she was able to hear her table mates and be able to hear that soft-spoken lady across the table who she hadn't been able to hear for, she said she just mumbles, she doesn't say anything. And all of a sudden she's like, actually, I could hear every word. And it was like the first time in a long time. So it's nice to hear those stories. That, like you said, it makes it nice to be able to come back into the house or come back into the office and um, have that. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is all, I think, very interesting information for those who may be watching this because they may be early on in the stages of their hearing healthcare journey and experiencing some of these things. And it's nice to give them some insight as to what are some of the positive experiences they can have if they seek help. And so, thank you for sharing those stories because I think those are real life stories of connection and quality of life that shows that getting the right treatment, getting some hearing aids with the right hearing care provider can really make a life-changing experience available to them. So thank you. But it's also interesting because as providers, that despite people struggling with hearing loss and there being solutions available out there, On average, people with hearing loss wait 10 years to get hearing aids after becoming aware of their hearing loss. So even though they're aware they have a hearing loss, they know there's some solutions out there, and you've discussed some of those positive results of wearing hearing aids, they still wait. And so in your practice, what are some of those reasons or concerns, obstacles that prevent people with hearing loss from getting help? And then, secondly, how do you help them overcome those concerns or obstacles so they get the help that they need?
I think people, for it's a complex uh, answer to, but I see there are three major issues that we routinely see. One, uh, since hearing loss is not an obvious uh, ailment, it's a slow, almost invisible ailment. People do take their time. Usually, they come because there's a catalyst involved, either a family member or maybe an event that preceded their reason for action. The second thing we find is people are increasingly coming to us because somebody else had a great experience with hearing aids. And with technological evolvement, that's really nice. And of course, the third major reason, amongst others, is cost. For a lot of people, they think, well, I'm not sure I can afford them. I've heard they're expensive. And with our partnership with TruHearing and everything else that we do, we can address all three of these major concerns. Number one, hearing aids are a lot better now with the clinical things that we can do with earlier measurements, with acceptance managers, with acclimatization protocols. We can help them accept amplification in a very comfortable environment without having to, climb the mountain in one day. Number two, the kind of control they have with smartphones, if they have one, a lot of people do. And it can be cool to be hard of hearing. They can do things other people cannot do. They can stream Spotify, they can stream Pandora, they can talk on their iPhone, and nobody knows what they're talking about. They can listen to podcasts while they're walking the dog, things like that. And with the company like TruHearing, they can also find very affordable solutions depending on their partnership with their health insurance. We actively make sure we check their insurance, find out what their coverage is, uh, and help them find the best solution possible. And I think it's working out better. I see a good outcome for consumers with companies like TruHearing. It's making the market grow, and a lot of these people would never be able to get this kind of help if not for the our partnership with TruHearing, which is great to see.
I think that a couple other concerns that sometimes, I'll ask patients about, when they're coming in, because oftentimes that we're not the first time that they've come in. They've seen somebody else and maybe waited a couple of years, and cost is definitely one that is brought up. But another one I think is cosmetics, that people are worried about how they look, or that they're going to be seen, or that they're going to be obvious. And I think that that's one of the hangups. They think of their parents' hearing aids, or the hearing aids that were there in the past. And then another one is just how comfortable is it going to be? Is it going to be something that's going to, they don't even like wearing earplugs, so having something else in their ear that they're worried that it's not going to be comfortable, or again that they've heard stories from others. And then the last one I think is almost a fear that they can't be helped, that they have this problem, that they've talked to others in the past from maybe their parents or whatever, and that they had issues in the past, but that they maybe that their hearing loss is something that can't be helped. And it really is inspiring that with the technology and the services that we have available, that we can meet all of those things. We can really show them, hey, this is how it looks, this is how it feels, this is how it sounds. And there it's really impressive compared to what a lot of people's expectations and fears are.
Yeah, Scott and Ganesh, you answered that very comprehensively. I don't have a whole lot to add to that, but I'll just say, in my experience, hesitancies that I've seen when people come in will be often, I had a friend who went through a process similar to this and it didn't go the way they were hoping it did, or there was this issue that couldn't be overcome. And my encouragement to those folks is to understand that not only is the technology always getting better, but as a field, our understanding of how to work with the technology and how to make things more usable and more convenient for people is always improving. And so, to look at what happened with your parents or a friend who went through the process several years ago likely won't line up with someone's experience today. It'll likely be much better.
Well, and with you gentlemen have done it as well. I mean, if we look back over the last 20, 30 years of how hearing aid technology has changed for us, what we were able to do and what those poor folks that 30 years ago were going through, that we were trying to help them, it's just amazing how we can help those hearing losses so much better now. It truly is night and day versus what we were able to do in the past. So it's not comparable at all, in my opinion.
And nothing succeeds like success, right? The earlier on, I'd mentioned this client that we saw this morning. Well, he was referred by TruHearing to our practice in Danville. And it was actually a husband and a wife. And they both came together. The husband decided to seek amplification. The wife was not ready, didn't think she had a problem, didn't want to do anything with it. And after he was fitted, they were together. And he was telling me that later, uh, that they were together in a social environment. And he was telling one of her girlfriends that was with them how much he was hearing that he had not heard before, and the birds and all that. And then she looked at her and said, you really could benefit from that too. And then she called us, and we're doing her fitting next week.
Okay.
So nothing succeeds like success. I mean, I think it's great that we can do all that, as Scott said, and it feeds off on each other. It's good to be a witness to these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm hearing from all of you, I think the common thread and advice for people with hearing loss is go to a provider, talk things through, talk about what your concerns are and your needs are, and talk to them about how they can help meet your expectations, because that's the first step. And it is good when you can talk to a friend or a relative that has had a positive experience, but they need to see and hear for themselves and experience that themselves. So thank you. I think that's all really wonderful information for viewers to hear, especially those who may have hearing loss. Okay. And what I'm hearing also is, and showcasing again, that the integral role that you as providers play in a person's hearing healthcare journey. We know that at TruHearing, we know that our providers play a key role in the positive outcomes that we hear from our customers, and that by working together, we improve the lives of people with hearing loss through affordable hearing care solutions that incorporate the latest and innovative hearing technology with the excellent provider care that you all provide. So let me ask you, how has being a TruHearing provider made a difference for you in your business? And how does that translate into patient care?
I'll start with that one. So, one thing that's very important to us in our practice is being sure that we're able to provide good access to hearing health care. And one of the wonderful things about TruHearing is simply the pricing that they're able to get patients hearing aids at. And so, that really opens the door to a lot of folks who otherwise might not be able to pursue hearing care, to begin hearing better. And so we're thankful for that, the help that TruHearing provides us to be able to provide better hearing care access to our patients, is really phenomenal. So that's something that we really love about participating with TruHearing.
Great.
I appreciate the fact that through the TruHearing program, that they're just using their top tiers of technology. I work with several different third-party groups, but this one in particular they've made the choice to work with the very best technology, which really affords us to be able to do the very most for our patients, and it translates into better outcomes. I think that our patients end up doing better with that we're not cutting corners, that we're actually providing the best hearing health care that's available to them, and that they can succeed and thrive. I like that better than just trying to find a minimal something to get by, and it makes a big difference, and my patients really appreciate it.
those are all excellent points, and mirrors my own experience here and in California as well. Um, I'm not sure what the exact numbers. These might be kind of a ballpark figure, but I would venture to say that anywhere from 35 to 45% of the clients that we see, this amplification choice would not be possible if not for their TruHearing coverage with their insurance company. That's a lot of people. We see a lot of people. And even if it's 25%, I mean, that's still a mind-bogglingly high number. And we want to be egalitarian. We don't want to be a practice that only serves people in a certain strata of society, whether they're higher income or middle income. We want to be able to make sure that everybody that comes in through their office with the as much as we can get the help that they need. And without TruHearing, and some of the other third-party companies, I'm not sure how we can do that. And I think TruHearing does a very, very, very good job of market penetration and being very egalitarian in their broad coverage.
Yeah.
Great. Ganesh and Aaron and Scott, you've already kind of answered some of this, but I'll ask my last question anyway. You all know that TruHearing partners with health plans, employer groups, and unions to offer affordable hearing aids and hearing care to their members. How important do you feel affordable hearing healthcare is to patients, and how does that translate into the patient satisfaction with their benefit provider?
In my mind, the cost of changing has to line up with the level of difficulty that someone is experiencing. And so, one thing that I really think is great about the affordable pricing through TruHearing is that it opens the door to not only folks who feel like they're at such a point where they need every last possible resource available to them, but maybe they feel like my problem doesn't need every last resource applied to it. I can pursue something that maybe isn't going to, you know, cause me to put too much financial resource into this. And so I think that's a huge benefit to TruHearing, where it can lead to ultimately better satisfaction because the cost that someone has to put forth lines up well with the level of difficulty that they're experiencing, or is even more in the favor of, better cost for them in that comparison.
Yeah. I think that, my patients seem to talk to each other. It seems like my patients, when they're sitting around the table, they're talking and they're comparing notes of where they got, what they did, and different things. And my patients are really loyal to it. They like the benefit that they get, and they're telling their friends, well, maybe you need to change your insurance so you can do what I'm doing. And they're encouraging them to come in. They're making referrals to that program when it's like, well, my insurance doesn't do that. And they're like, well, no, you need to switch. You got to try this out. They're referring to me as well, but also just referring to that program because of the benefits and the help they're getting. And, like I said, go back to the joy, just the joy that they're experiencing, that they just want to share it and say, hey, look, you've got to do this. You can't be missing out.
Well, if I was in charge of a health plan today, one of the larger carriers that are partnering with companies like TruHearing, uh, brand loyalty is very important not only for our practices. Of course, our clients and our patients want great outcomes and a good quality of life. Of course, TruHearing would want to grow their business. And it's also, I imagine, would be very important for the people that provide the Medicare Advantage plans and all these ancillary insurance products, on top of Medicare and unions and whatnot. Uh, that brand loyalty is probably important to them too, because customers have a choice in the marketplace. Customers don't have to come to Key Hearing Aids. They have lots of choices in the marketplace. We want them to come to us because we think we provide the best care in the world. Uh, but we have to earn their trust. And when I'm sure a lot of these health plans go out of their way to make sure they have the proper coverage and find the right balance between what it costs to provide that care versus happy customers that will renew their plans with them. Well, yes, let's say, for example, I broke my arm. Yes, that's a big deal. I want to make sure that gets fixed. But once it's fixed, okay, it's fixed. But a hearing aid is something people wear 13 hours a day, 365 days a year. And and what it costs the healthcare plan to fix their arm is a lot more than what it probably cost them to get a hearing aid that lasts 3, 4 years. So I would say that we're finding out that people are starting to look for healthcare plans that have hearing aid coverages.
Wonderful. And I think it's nice to see more and more of our partners offering robust benefits and discounts through the True Hearing program for their members to increase their satisfaction, like you have all spoken so eloquently about. So, in closing, on behalf of True Hearing, I'd like to thank each of you for participating in today's panel discussion. You represent 3 of the more than 7,000 True Hearing provider locations nationwide who are an integral part of the hearing care journey for those with hearing loss. As experts in the hearing healthcare industry and providers of the highest quality care and service, we appreciate you sharing your insights and experiences with our viewers. You've shared some wonderful information with those who are watching. And so I'd like to also thank our viewers. We hope you've gained a better understanding of hearing loss, the impact it can have on one's health and well-being, and to know that there are affordable hearing care solutions available through True Hearing and our partnerships. So thank you so much for joining us today.